Welcome, everybody, to the weekly David Samson Show. A more brief experience for you this week as the guys out in L.A., Chris Cody, Chris Whittingham, and Tony, have a special bit of content that they recorded a couple of days ago in La La Land. I cannot wait to get to that. Apparently, they caught up with Adam McKay in Hollywood. It was a big week for the Oscar nominations, and we'll get into that shortly with the host of Nothing Personal with David Samson. Follow him on Twitter, at David P. Samson. It is a huge, busy week in this country, but also in sports business, and he has got every angle for you covered on that tremendous podcast. A lot of things to get to with you. Let's start with your bread and butter, baseball. Looks like a possible work stoppage is looming. I know a couple of weeks ago when I asked you, it sounded like good news, bad news. Good news is there's going to be a season, it looks like, and bad news, there's going to be a season. They're ripping away split squad spring training baseball from me, David.
Are you okay? I just want to know, like, are you cold right now, or you feel okay?
We have a mental health corner over here with all sorts of like slime and sound machines and just ways to help me work through this awful story that spring training baseball may be impacted by this.
Well, listen, I know how hard you've worked to become a fan again, not just of baseball, but of me. And I want to just take a moment right now, if I could, to thank you so much and the Academy for all of your support over all of these years, all of the love and attention that you have toward me and my career post-baseball. It just, I also want to thank Jerry, and I want to thank Dan and Roy and Chris and Greg. I love you guys so much.
I would have
and
played
Jessica.
you off by now if I thought quickly enough.
Yeah, listen.
All
to
right,
me,
give me the goods. What's going
Relax.
on with baseball?
I've told you for 2 months that spring training wasn't going to happen on time. I told you the regular season wasn't going to happen on time, and now everybody's freaking out that it's happening this way. There is no deadline of February 16th to have a deal done, and that's the first day of spring training reporting. That doesn't mean a thing to players. It doesn't mean a thing to owners. Hard stop. Number two, March 31st doesn't mean anything when you're doing a 5-year deal. The players want to get more than they got last time from their collective bargaining agreement. The owners want to give less than what the players want to get. And both sides are willing to sacrifice games during the regular season in order to achieve that. It's the equivalent of you, during your negotiation with Meadowlark, agreeing to withhold services for 7 days in return for a 3-year guaranteed contract of more money than you were going to get originally. It is simple dollars and cents.
So we're going to get a shorter season here?
I do not believe there will be an 162-game season, and I believe that everyone will be fine because we'll have a great September, there'll be a great October, and everything will be normal. You'll forget about it. Do you remember, I asked this of Coca during a recent Nothing Personal, do you remember the Knicks going to the finals in 1999 against the San Antonio Spurs?
Yeah, I do. As a Miami Heat fan, I know exactly how their journey went.
Yes, you do, because Allen Houston, do you know that I watched, here's a little known story about Jeffrey Loria and his wife at the time, my mother, Sylvia Loria. I had my appendix out the night before Game 5 of the first round series because I was doubled over in pain, which I thought was nervousness because I was such a huge Knicks fan. It turns out that I go to the doctor, go to the hospital, and I have to have surgery. But guess what happens? They leave because they're going out to watch the game. Anyway, Allen Houston scores that bucket. The Knicks win. What was the regular season record of the Heat that year?
They were the 1 seed.
I didn't ask that.
I don't know. I don't know what the record was. This is a while ago, but they were good enough to be the 1 seed.
Do you remember the fact that it was not a full regular season?
Yeah, I remember, and that the New York Knicks were in no way representative of what a true 8 seed would be in a normal season. The dice were a bit loaded that series.
That means the Heat then were in no way a number 1 seed.
No. That's not what that means.
I'm totally unclear with what you're saying then.
The Knicks, their record, if I recall correctly, the Knicks had some injuries that season. They got off to a slow start. They weren't a true 8 seed just based on talent. We've seen this before in that sport too in the NBA. I think the Lakers, when they had Shaq and Kobe, once made the finals as like a 4 seed just because they kind of cruise during the regular season. Although a lockout shortened season kind of makes cruising an unwise choice.
There's no question about that. Like with the 60-game regular season that happened in 2020 where you can have playoff teams, the Marlins, do you look at the Marlins not having broken their playoff streak in 2020, or do you say they broke their playoff streak?
That one's kind of tough for me because I kind of dug how baseball went that year, but it was a mutated version. However, they did win their series against the Cubs. And
which was a 2 out of 3.
Yeah, which was a 2 out of 3.
Which was great.
Yeah, it wasn't like one of these crazy one game sample type deals. So I think it's a legitimate playoff run, no doubt. So I do think that they broke their postseason streak. I dug that season, and if you're telling me that baseball is going to come back to anything, that's hopefully a lot shorter, but just shorter than what it normally is, I'm down for that because I really liked that sprint during the pandemic, even though some players were missing and there were all sorts of games that were suspended, and it was just a bastardization of a sport that I used to like, but I'm not crazy about now. So bring on the bastardization, David.
Well, that sounds like a great movie. So we're not going to bring on the bastardization, but we are going to bring on today is the announcement of spring training being delayed. And Rob Manfred will not tell you today that the regular season is not going to start on time. He is going to say the regular season is in jeopardy of not starting on time if an agreement is not done here shortly. And that's so the players start paying attention and start moving a little faster. Of course, the players think the owners aren't moving faster. And, of course, that's why we're having a disagreement between the owners and the players. But it is going to be an interesting next couple of weeks because the owners are going to have to admit at some point that they're willing to play 140 or 130 games. And the players are going to have to admit.
That's too many.
That's too many?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not going to be fewer than that.
I was hoping like for maybe 30.
No. You can't do 30.
How about this idea where you do
they
like
would cancel the season before 30.
How about you do like one half season and another half season? You have like a postseason for the half seasons. And
1981 split season?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Were you around for that?
No, I was born in 85.
Oh, bummer. So in 1981, so that means no one knows what I'm talking about. There was something called a split season. Do you know the minor leagues still do a split season? And if you win one half, you get to go to the playoffs. And even if you have a crappy second half, you still are a playoff team. So you get to say in your marketing, hey, we're the Florida Marlins, and we had 6 playoff teams in the minor league system. Yeah, we lost 95 games, but we had 6 playoff teams, and our farm system is ranked number 7. Hip, hip, hooray.
What do you think about that idea, though?
Split season? No.
Yeah, no?
Because when good teams now as a team,
why is baseball so apprehensive to listen to kooky ideas like this? This is fun.
I'm going to explain to you. No. Listen, here's the problem. You can't get 23 votes for it because the good teams need 162 in order to manage the possibility of an early season slow start. Because over the course of 162, the cream rises to the top and the best teams win. Last year was a pretty serious anomaly where the San Francisco Giants held on and were that good the entire year, but they also got 6 players to have career years that were simply unbelievable. But in general, the best teams win over a longer period of time. In a sprint like 60 games, the owners were furious at that season. As you remember, that was only 2 years ago. It seems like a decade ago. It was expanded playoffs, so there were extra teams because they were trying to make up for the fact that there were going to be good teams that may not have a good 60 games, and the broadcast partners wanted those big market good teams in the playoffs.
If you're watching us on youtube.com/LeBatard and Friends, you notice that this week we've really upgraded our tech and our production facilities have really been boosted here. You would have zero evidence of that during this segment in which I've looked at 3 cameras, all of them wrong. So I apologize for that, but I trust me when I say that the rest of the shows will be spectacular. And we're going to do a live NBA Third Deadline show with Tom and Amin, and perhaps a special treat for our audience right before then to get you in the tent with Chris Mad Dog Russo. And again, you're going to want to stick around for the tail end of this local hour for a real special bit. I want to ask you, switching gears now to the NFL. They're obviously dominating the sports landscape. It doesn't matter that Super Bowl week. They always dominate the sports landscape. But Roger Goodell was made available per the annual tradition of the Super Bowl. He was made available to the media at a, really complicated time for one Roger Goodell to be made available. I want to play for you a question first, and then we can revisit Roger's answer to it. But I thought the question, I learned more from this question by Jim Trotter than I did by Roger's answer, but I want to play this for you and get your reaction.
In your initial statement, the league's initial statement, it said that diversity, equity, and inclusion were core principles of the NFL. And I need to provide some context before I can ask you about that statement. In the 100-plus year history of this league, 24 of the 32 franchises have either had one black head coach or no black head coaches. That's nearly half the league. We look at the fact that there's never been a majority black owner. There's only been one black club president. We look at the GMs, now we're up to 7. 5 of those were hired in the last 12 months. We're now at 3 black head coaches, 2 of whom were hired after Brian Flores filed his lawsuit. So it's easy to focus on the owners here, but I want to put this to you here. When we look at the league office, of the top 11 executives there are only 2 people of color. When we look at NFL Media Group, where I work, there is not one black person at the senior level in the newsroom who makes decisions about a league whose player population is 70% black. So as a member of the media group and as a black man, I ask, why does the NFL and its owners have such a difficult time at the highest levels hiring black people into decision-making positions?
That's a damn good question by Jim Trotter, a brave question from him. So, David, so far, your reaction, a lot of information there to digest.
Yeah, who does he work for?
The NFL Media.
So is NFL Media owned by the NFL?
Yep.
And the NFL's owned by the 32 owners?
Yeah, Jim Trotter is basically asking this question of his boss in an open format.
Right, I just want to point out that is an absolutely... Can I wear 2 hats here on this show?
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, I want to see where your head's because
where my head is that is a very important question that needs to be answered, and that is the exactly most inappropriate place to do it. And I don't want to come off wrong here, and you can protect. I don't want your protection unless you really tell me you have to protect me.
I do think you have to be careful because
I'm going to be very careful here.
Because I think a lot of people on the right side of history would argue that is the exact forum where you bravely ask this question.
But that's not where the action's going to come from. It's not going to come from meeting with Reverend Al Sharpton. It's not going to come from the Rooney Rule. It's going to come from having different owners.
Well, that's when
change will happen.
But David,
it doesn't come from Roger Goodell.
But to your
Roger
point,
Goodell can't make owners do something, Mike.
No, I understand that. Look, I understand. I actually think Roger Goodell is actually committed to diversity. I think it is important, and we'll let Roger Goodell answer that on his own here in moments. I do think it's a very frustrating thing. He's tilting at windmills right now because he is trying to force change, but ultimately his bosses are the ones making the hiring.
But let me ask you a question, Mike, and I'm sorry, and it's not the wrong side of history. If there's a conference, an earnings call with Nike, and someone who works at Nike gets on the call, it's an investor's call, and you've got investment bankers on it, and says, "Hi, David Samson with Nike. Question, why is it that we continue to manufacture goods in China and not pay them a living wage and have them live in unbelievable squalor, and yet we've done nothing about that over the 40-year history of Nike, and we continue to have outperform our earnings and make money for all of the owners of this company?" Is that a question that you believe is appropriately asked by a Nike employee in a public forum?
If I were the boss, I wouldn't feel that way. However, Roger Goodell, if he is truly committed to change, truly committed to advancing the cause of employing more minority candidates, then I don't think he minds it. But let's see how he answered it and then find out if he minded it or not.
We look at the same numbers, and they're really part of the effort that, again, looking at how do we become more effective in our policies and procedures. We work really hard. We believe in diversity. We believe in it as a value. We believe it's made it stronger. People who've come into the league who are diverse have been very successful and made us better. And we just have to do a better job. We have to look, is there another thing that we can do to make sure we're attracting that best talent here and making our league inclusive? If I had the answer right now, I would give it to you. I think what we have to do is just continue and find and look and step back and say, we're not doing a good enough job here. We need to find better solutions and better outcomes. I think it's not a single answer, Jim. The single responsibility comes on all of us in the NFL, and we have to be the ones that make that change, and we are the ones that have to make sure we bring diversity deeper into our NFL and make the NFL an inclusive and diverse organization that allows everyone the opportunity to be successful.
Can I just tell you that I covered this for about 18 minutes on today's Nothing Personal? You understand that I knew what you were getting at. It was all a setup. This question, of course, was asked by an NFL employee. His answer was extremely prepared and perfectly stated. Of course, Roger's not upset this question was answered. He made sure this question was going to be asked and then answered the way it was answered. You think for a minute there's like this rogue guy in the NFL who was called on with Roger's media availability during the Super Bowl and then all of a sudden was asking this tough question? It gave Roger the opportunity to give the answer he gave, which is the biggest non-answer of all time. We need to do a better job, blah, blah, blah. That's what everybody says when they get caught doing something. I got to do better.
So, David, you're saying that Goodell intentionally got Jim Trotter to ask him that question?
Do you think that those press conferences, I talked about this, Roy, on the show this morning, those press conferences are absolutely handled and manufactured. There's an order in which I commented on the show today. Do you know that Tia Leone and Morgan Freeman on Deep Impact, does that sound familiar to you, or is that movie way too old?
Where is this going, though?
Do you remember when Tia Leone got the first question at the press conference?
Yeah, well, yeah, I remembered the movie Deep Impact, and I do remember that Tia Leone got the first question, and I'm just trying to figure out, this is a weird movie to invoke right now.
No, I'm talking about the press conferences are not always what they seem.
No, it's all right. Let me follow the analogy. Go ahead.
No,
it just caught me by surprise. I didn't expect to hear Tia Leone on today's local hour.
You're asking me whether Roger was surprised by that question or whether he was prepared for that question, and I'm telling you he was neither surprised nor not prepared.
I mean, of course he's not going to be surprised. There are journalists there that are going to ask him that question during the Super Bowl. That's understandable. It's just that Jim Trotter works for him.
Yeah, well, what did you make of the rattling of the sats? It's not just saying we have a diversity problem. It's here, let me show you exactly how bad, because those were damning metrics that Jim Trotter revealed to the public that were available for anybody that wanted to do the research. But look, I didn't know that. Yeah, but I didn't know that. And someone took that platform to put out those damning numbers. I mean, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know how bad.
You're setting me up here, Mike. I'm not telling you that the NFL doesn't have a problem.
Yeah.
I'm speaking specifically about this press conference and how planned and structured this press conference was.
Oh, I got
because
that.
Roger Goodell knew he had a problem. The problem is he's there to talk about the Super Bowl and to woo his sponsors and to make this a celebration. And this lawsuit was put in place and announced at a time, and the whole Dan Snyder issue as well has gotten in the way, because we're not talking about Burrow and Stafford. We're talking about this, and Roger doesn't want that. So we had to make a decision early on going into this press conference. Do I not meet the media at all? I can't do that. I can't run away from this. Do I not take questions on the diversity issue in the lawsuit? I can't do that. That'll make me look bad. Do I take it head on, or do I say, no, let's talk about the game and we'll get to the rest later? No, I'm going to start with it. I'm going to lead with it, and I'm going to let it be known where I stand, and we're going to point out all of the ways in which we failed and how we're going to try to make it better, but that we're as stumped as you are. We don't have the right answers, but it's not for lack of looking.
Well,
that was his proposal.
I appreciate the Snyder vine. I will take you up on that. But real quick, how do you think Goodell actually did in that moment?
I think he stuck to his script, and that was right. He can't say, hey, we had the answer. He can't talk about the fact that we're meeting with civil rights groups and that the Rooney Rule doesn't work, because they just buttressed the Rooney Rule. Like last year, they made changes to it. So they can't say that it's in itself not good. They know it has to get better. They can't comment on the fact that there were all these black head coaches hired post-lawsuit, because everyone knows that that's what happened. It's not a shock that Lovie Smith got hired by Houston. Like, what are we talking about here? Who are we trying to fool? Brian Flores saying, hey, I deserve that job, but I didn't get it because of the lawsuit. Well, no shit, Sherlock. That's why you didn't get the job, because you filed the lawsuit. But we're going to hire someone else who's black and say, hey, we're on our way to getting better.
How do you think Brian Flores' lawsuit is going?
As a lawsuit?
Yeah, just generally.
Terribly.
Yeah.
Well, no. It's getting a lot of attention. There's a chance that it will accomplish what he wants, which is to effectuate long-term change, that he will be known as the catalyst, like the ground zero of change that actually happened.
Which is weird that he laments the hiring of Lovie Smith in an official statement from his attorneys.
This is the problem. That is when the lawyers in their joint statement lost me. When he released that statement, that's when I said, wait a minute, maybe this is all about Brian Flores, when I thought it was all about everyone who was going to come after Brian Flores and that he was stepping on the grenade in order to save lives left and right. And then he tells, I would have had that job but for the lawsuit. But by the way, congratulations, Lovey. He lost me with that statement.
Yeah, but it's a class action lawsuit, so it should not be all about Brian Flores.
Right,
he
but
needs
they're
the support.
But Roy,
it's
aren't
not
they
a class
pulling...
action lawsuit yet, Roy.
It's
There's
not. Okay.
There's no class. There's no class been certified. There's nothing. It is not a class action lawsuit.
Well, I've been told that it could be an opt-out situation rather than an opt-in situation. So there might be already an established class that's trying to pull out.
A class has to be certified by a judge.
Okay.
The judge has not certified that there is a class yet. So you asked me how the lawsuit's going. There is not one legal analyst, who would tell you that this case has a high likelihood of surviving an initial motion to dismiss. And the NFL will file that motion to dismiss, but they want to get enough green in front of them of good press, of things they have done, of things they can point to, because they don't want to come off as looking so terrible by filing a motion to dismiss this very important lawsuit. They want to say, hey, listen, legally, there's a motion to dismiss, but look at the 20 things we've done in order to address the issues contained in the document.
So Dan Snyder, to him now, pulled a move that was pretty audacious, and I understand how he thinks he could get away with it. So back under the microscope, more terrible Commanders news out in the mainstream, and he has announced that he is hiring a firm for an independent investigation. I don't think you can hire a firm for an independent investigation. Someone else, perhaps an independent, would have to hire an independent agency to start investigating independently. But Daniel Snyder seems to be digging a deeper hole, and I never really thought the NFL could force a sale here, but he may be getting in too deep here, David.
Well, first of all, Daniel Snyder, it's funny. So he hires this company, these bunch of people. I think me and Coca tried to do it, and I think you can get paid too, because you're not independent at all. You come up with the results, and then you show them to Snyder, and Snyder likes them or doesn't like them, and then that's it. But Roger Goodell put the kibosh on it immediately. He said, you can't independently investigate yourself. We'll take over. And I said to myself, Roger, does that sound familiar? The last time you had Wilkinson investigate the WFT and fine him $10 million, Snyder started that. You took over. You used the same people, and you did a deal with Dan not to release anything publicly, and you had a prearranged deal to fine him $10 million, and that he'd step aside so that Tanya Harding could take over and watch the team for a few months. That's all that's happening here, because the NFL said they're going to take over the investigation. Right now, the NFL is deciding, and it's really the owners who are deciding, whether or not they're going to try to get Snyder to sell his team, because there's been so much squeeze and so little juice coming out of Washington for so long, and it's such a huge franchise that if the Broncos, and hear me out on this because it's a little crazy, but this is how owners think, if the Broncos actually get $4 billion, and it is the minority ownership, which is one of the groups is led by a very influential media executive who happens to be African-American, I believe that the NFL will try to get the Redskins, the Commanders to sell and get rid of Daniel Snyder and then bring in someone into the Beltway who will pay more than $4 billion for that team. And all of a sudden, everybody's franchise value is up, not just in Forbes magazine, but in reality, because the transactions are in a different stratosphere.
Too many fires in such a short order of time. God knows what we don't know about. I'm beginning to think that one of the most powerful men in the room may be forced out of the room here, David. I want to talk to you about a Woj report, And I'd actually like to get into this later in the show because there's some interesting reporting being done within ESPN, some conflicting reports out in the open between Brian Windhorst and Adrian Wojnarowski, and I'm sure Amin and Tom will have thoughts on that. But here is the Woj report. ESPN sources, although Brooklyn Nets guard James Harden wants a trade to the Philadelphia 76ers, he has resisted making that formal request out of fear of the public backlash that would come with asking out of a second franchise in consecutive seasons. This is a hilarious report. Articulate to our audience why it's hilarious.
Because he did ask for a trade. By not asking for a trade, but saying he wants to have a trade, who do you think that source is? Just out of curiosity, I'm just curious here who people think the source of that may be.
Who would have insight into what James Harden is thinking?
I
and
can't
how
even imagine.
Afraid of optics he might be. This is a very curiously worded report.
Are you surprised that this came out with the deadline? I don't know when you're releasing this, so I don't know what time it is. But
no, this is coming out this morning. And again, if you want live coverage of the NBA trade deadline, we're going to be doing that on youtube.com/LeBatard and Friends with Amin El-Hassan and Tom Haberstroh. Maybe this
3
superstar.
p.m. is the deadline, Mike.
Yeah, it'll be on from 2 to 4. So we'll walk you up an hour to it. Then 3 o'clock is the third deadline. And then an hour worth of reaction, guests, all sorts of hijinks. It'll be done from our kitchen/lounge. We have $1 billion now.
Do you want to bet $1 that a little Randolph Mortimer bet?
Yeah.
That Simmons doesn't get traded today, Harden doesn't get traded today, Westbrook doesn't get traded today. Do you want to do that? And I have to win all 3 to win?
Wow.
Harden, Simmons, Westbrook will not get traded.
Yeah, all right. Mortimer bet, you're on.
All right.
No,
but
if
these
one of
we
them
have to collect.
But if one of them gets moved, I win.
I lose.
All right.
Yeah, I said all 3.
Man, it's really hard to pull off these mega deals. Really hard.
Who of those 3 do you feel are going to be traded in the next? I don't know what time you're releasing this.
I don't think Westbrook.
6 hours.
I don't think Westbrook gets moved.
Well, he's such a good player. How could you not want him? I mean, I want him on my team. Who else?
I don't think Westbrook gets moved.
Okay.
The Simmons Harden thing. If I gun to my head, man.
I hate that expression.
Yeah. All right. So. Knife to my throat.
Wait, you think Simmons is going to trade it for Harden today?
Knife to my throat. I think Simmons and Harden are in a package deal for each other. And here's why. I actually happen to know some of this. I'm not going out there and reporting, but you may have caught me. You may have caught me like alluding to some tampering that maybe perhaps has gone on between the 76ers and James Harden. This has been well known within league circles for a long time.
Daryl Morey knows James Harden, Mike? No way.
I think I think I'm going straight to the top here, David. I'm not just putting Morey is just the obvious fall guy here. I think it goes deeper than that. In fact, I happen to know it goes deeper than that, but I will not be reporting that because I am on the college football beat. So I will.
You just did report it.
No, I didn't.
That's like James Harden saying, "I'm not making a trade demand because I don't want people to think I want to be traded."
I don't want people to think that I'm reporting another massive story in consecutive seasons.
What? I literally don't understand what you're talking about.
I'm saying that
Are you saying that David Blitzer, the owner of the 76ers,
no, I'm not saying him.
Is that your source?
I'm not saying him.
No. Josh Harris.
Moving on.
Him?
Moving on.
Okay. Wait, so are you taking the bet or not? And
yes, I'll take that bet.
But it's not fair if you know the trade's been done.
No.
Are they doing physicals right now?
I don't know if the trade's been done. No.
Are you sure?
I think there are legitimate logistical hurdles to be cleared here for this. I tried to combine those words like Chris Cody. I think that there are legitimate hurdles to get this deal done. But I will say, James Harden has wanted Philadelphia for a very long time, and Philadelphia has
Is there a deal in place?
No.
Is there a deal in place as we make this bet?
The deal in place is what is on everybody's trade machine. It's obvious. It's obvious what the trade is.
No, but has there been a written agreement that you're aware of? Okay, then the dollar bet is on.
Yep.
But this is serious. If you know about an agreement and you just can't say it, then it's not the right thing to take the bet.
I know about an agreement amongst parties. I don't know about the most important agreement between the Nets and the 76ers.
Well, first of all, I don't care that you know that Harden's extension is already negotiated with the Sixers because that's not the trade.
That's obvious.
Okay, so then
that
what's
part's
your point?
obvious.
So
wait, is it not obvious that part is Should we say it? Yeah, that part has always worked out with these kind of moves, and that's not even the kind of tampering that I'm talking about. Like, that is just standard protocol when it comes to these type of mega deals.
So then, all right, what exactly are you saying then?
What am I saying? He's a host of Nothing Personal. He's David Samson. And he also reviews movies for us, and it was a big week for movies. Real quick, before we get your weekly review, any thoughts on the Oscar nominations?
Yeah, I've seen 7 of the 10 best pictures. I need to see Drive My Car. I'm going to see Licorice Pizza this weekend.
I love that movie. I love Licorice Pizza. Yeah, that filmmaker.
Does it feel weird watching it knowing that it's Philip Seymour Hoffman's son? Because I'm worried
it was
how I'm
odd.
gonna feel watching it.
It was a very family affair because Philip Seymour Hoffman's son is in it. Haim, the popular rock band, all sisters, and their parents played their actual parents in the film. Leo DiCaprio's dad is in it. It's a very generational film. There's a lot of cool Easter eggs, and I thought 2 of the best roles were these. They weren't necessarily cameos, but they were smaller roles within the film. I thought Bradley Cooper was great, and even though I find him terribly unctuous, amongst other things, that piece of garbage Sean Penn was pretty good in it too.
Well, I will let you know, but I need to see it. I was not surprised, but disappointed that House of Gucci got shut out the way it did. Jared Leto ended up getting a Razzie nomination, not an Oscar nomination. Lady Gaga, they really pushed for her.
I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
No, I wanted that movie. When I heard that movie was being made with that cast, I wanted it to be good, and then I saw it and it wasn't good. So I'm disappointed by that movie.
Ridley,
the one movie.
What do you make of what Ridley Scott is doing here? Because he's trying to make a lot of movies as he's at the end of the rope, and maybe some of the quality, like, it's just not landing the way that it should. I enjoyed The Last Duel, but it didn't land the way that it was intended. And House of Gucci flopped critically, I think.
It did. I liked The Last Duel, actually. I really did. And I love Adam Driver. And Adam Driver was in a 3rd movie this year that got no attention, and that bothered me. It was a movie called The Net, which was with Marion Cotillard, which is streaming right now. I wanted that to get some attention. But it's pretty amazing, some of the movies that are nominated. I was disappointed that Passing didn't get any attention. There were good performances there. I was disappointed that Tick, Tick, Boom did not get a Best Picture nod because I really wanted to. I love that movie. But all in all, I love the Oscars. I love the nominations. But I have a confession to make, and this is so terrible. I had never heard of Leslie Jordan before. The guy who announced the nominations, this old white guy with gray hair who was sort of funny in a weird sort of, he reminded me of the another actor whose name I can't remember right now, so that's not helpful.
Oh, yeah, I follow Leslie Jordan on Instagram.
Who is he?
I know him from Instagram. He's funny on Instagram.
Wait, is he an influencer?
Now he is, yeah. No, he is. No, he's had a very long career. I looked him up after I followed him on Instagram. I'm like, this dude's hilarious, and he's a longtime actor. He's 4'11".
Do you remember a movie called Switching Channels?
He's 4'11", by the way.
Is he really?
4'11".
My God, that's shorter than Muggsy Bogues. That's shorter than I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
was he always 4'11", or has he shrunk?
I don't know. I can't.
What was his listed height during the meat of his career?
I don't know. IMDb says he's got a diminutive 4'11" frame.
I used to take that as an insult. I was called by a writer once diminutive and cocksure.
Yeah.
And I took offense to that, and I was told it's just an adjective.
I
said cocksure? They said no.
You took offense to cocksure?
I took offense to diminutive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because cocksure, I actually think, like, well, thank you.
I
would tip my hat. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very sure of certain things. Okay. What's your actual review?
So I want to talk about a movie here that everybody has seen, but I want to talk to you about how I took it. I watched Encanto last night.
You've only watched it once? I have a 2-year-old. How many times do you think I've seen Encanto? Let's have another dollar bet.
Okay, the over-under. I believe your daughter will have watched that movie 40 times. So I'm going to say the over-under that you've watched it is 25, and I'll take the over.
Man,
Roy?
I think we're pushing. I think that's very close. It hasn't been around that long. How many times have you seen Encanto, Roy? Have you seen it yet?
It was on the TV while my wife and daughter was watching. I was working, so watching.
This is, many are calling it the best Disney animated feature since Moana. And I read an article that pointed out that Disney actually has had a recent trend here of having these animated features that don't have a love story attached to it, which is not.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, which used to be a staple of the Disney animated feature. No longer. You got to think that that's a choice.
Was there a love story in Frozen?
Not a main story. They're side stories with Anna. With Anna and Hans.
There's sort of a side love story in Encanto. The love between the mother and her child, Bruno.
Oh, we don't talk about
We don't talk about Bruno, though. That I heard in my half watch.
Do you know that someone told me that's the #1 song?
It was, yeah.
And do you know that it wasn't nominated for an Oscar, and Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't want it to be nominated for an Oscar? He wanted I'm not going to say it right.
The
so
doble?
2 caterpillars.
What? Oh, what? I thought does he want a Grammy nom instead? Those songs
No.
bang.
He's going for the EGOT. He's trying to get an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. He's missing the O, and this song is nominated, and it's the song at the end of the movie that was mostly in Spanish, and I thought it was 2 caterpillars, but I could be wrong, and it was sung by the grandmother, Abuela.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was not the best song in the movie, but he wanted that song to be nominated because he felt, hey, that's more about what this movie is about, more so than, hey, let's talk about Bruno, or we don't want to talk about Bruno, or some of the other good songs. So Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's just a genius, as you know.
Yep.
And
I do know. He's a good friend of mine. I was in a Zoom with him.
Were you really?
Yeah, when Katie Nolan did that thing at the beginning of the lockdown, where it was.
Wait, you had a meal with him?
No, we did the thing like, how many famous people can we recruit to this Zoom? And then all of a sudden, Lefko brings in D. Wade and Lin-Manuel Miranda's there, and I'm just cutting it up, talking to that dude from Westworld.
Have you spoken to him since?
No, he's very busy, but I'm
Do you
sure
have
he
a
means
cell phone
well.
number?
Do I have his cell phone number? No, he didn't shoot me a follow though. He basically shot everybody else in that Zoom a follow. I didn't get one.
So, are you good friends or just acquaintances?
Besties. I'm happy that Carlos Vives is having a moment too, that English-speaking audiences are familiarizing themselves with a brilliant artist in Carlos Vives. I celebrate his catalog. I hope you do too. He's tremendous, and he has a couple of great songs on Encanto. I love the movie. David, did you?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Listen, I watched it without kids. I watched it just because I wanted to. It's an Oscar nominee, so I wanted to make sure I watched it. And I didn't look at my phone during the course of the movie. It kept me interested. What really strikes me is the way technology has changed. That these animated movies, if you go back and look at Aladdin, which is my favorite, versus Encanto, it's so colorful, so beautiful, just so mystical and magical. I'm all in. Now, do I miss the days with having young kids watching these movies 25 times? I do not. But I'm happy I saw it once.
All right. He's a host of Nothing Personal with David Samson. He's David Samson. Follow him at David P. Samson. I like that Hollywood theme. And in concert with that, a Hollywood-type segment coming your way from Tony Whitty and Chris Cody.